Hello guys, how are all of you doing? I'm sure you're all enjoying the final week of preparation before the exam. Just a few things that I wanted to speak about before you go in on Friday for the exam is a few things coming in from what the examiner has put in his recent reports is I'll start off with a few general things he has spoken about. He says the whole point of having sectioning within the exam is to be able to test MCQs from all parts of the syllabus. So please make sure that you concentrate on everything that is examinable, because he usually says that students are often comfortable with topics like investment appraisal, net present value, and so on, but less confident on maybe things within sources of finance, like maybe the monetary policy, fiscal policy. So please make sure you're comfortable with all topics on an equal basis. Okay, a few other things is in terms of time management, now that 60% of the exam is going to be MCQs, I don't think you will have a very big issue, but make sure that you apportion enough time. For examples, for an example, in a theory question within section A or B, you wouldn't take as much time, but that does not mean that you just read through the question quickly and take the first option that looks correct. We know the theory questions can be quite tricky also. So please make sure that you read the question carefully, examine the statement, look at if it's correct in concept. If you feel there's something wrong with it, pick out what is wrong, why it's wrong, and so on. Examine it carefully and then take what you feel is the right option. Or, like we have been practicing in class, please make sure you work through the question through elimination. Eliminate the wrong options, which will then probably leave you with two possible options, and within that, with certain tricky questions, you might have to make an educated guess on what you think is the right answer. So MCQs are a core part of the syllabus, so please make sure you're comfortable with all topics. Anything can be tested as an MCQ in section A and section B. Whereas, as we know, within section C, the examiner has said that he will concentrate on topics like, and all of these have an equal chance of getting tested. So I'm not making any predictions here, but please do concentrate on investment appraisal, which is a standard net present value question with inflation, taxation, tax allowable depreciation, working capital, and so on. Make sure, like we practiced exam technique in class, whenever you get stuck, please make sure you assume numbers. Even if you lose a mark, you do one tricky step wrong, it doesn't matter. Please make sure that you continue with the working, you're able to comment on your findings, make sure you attempt all the theory questions. Those will give you the easy marks. So investment appraisal with some form of net present value, be it capital rationing or lease versus buy, you could have some form of it. You will also have some of the other form of working capital, which can be tested in terms of maybe a discount offered to customers, so a receivables question where you do the cost versus savings. Make sure you're comfortable also with cash management, inventory management. He loves to test things like what matters for the investing policy, for the financing policy within working capital. So the nature of the industry, the aggressive conservative policies, you need to talk about all of those also. Within weighted average cost of capital, he could do a standard question on KE, cost of equity, cost of preference shares, cost of debt, maybe redeemable bonds, convertible bonds, and finding an average, all of this. And then also talking about when the WACC can be used. So the business risk should be the same, the financial risk should be the same, and so on. So make sure you're able to discuss your calculations also. So working capital, investment appraisal, weighted average cost of capital, and one more thing that he can test is a little bit of sources of finance, maybe rights issues, and so on, and a little bit of ratios also. So for example, you might get a question which says the company is now thinking of raising new finance either through equity or debt. And if they go for equity, what are the advantages, disadvantages, both conceptually in terms of will there be dilution of control if we issue new shares and so on, or you might have to do a ratio analysis and see how it will impact the gearing if we go for equity or debt. What will be the cost? Obviously equity will be more costly, but we do not have to pay guaranteed dividends, whereas with debt we might have to pay interest, so the risk profile might change and so on. Yeah, so you could get any of these questions as a section C question. So pretty much everything in the syllabus can be tested, with the exception of so you probably will not need to expect a full question on valuations, business valuations, and risk management. These will not be tested as a full question in section C. It could be a small part of a section C question, but not a full question. So those risk management and business valuations will probably be tested heavily in section A and or section B as MCQs. Yeah. Okay. A few more things, guys, the examiner has stressed about is he says students are not being specific to answering the requirement in the theory parts. So when he says discuss the advantages of a certain topic, please make sure that you limit your answers to only advantages. There are no marks available for disadvantages. And if in the requirement he specifically states, please state 3 advantages, please make sure that your answer does not exceed 3 advantages, as you will not gain more marks for writing 4 or 5 advantages. Yeah, so all you need to do is state 3 advantages and probably discuss them in detail to score more marks. Okay, please also make sure that you practice the online quiz that I've sent you guys for good practice on MCQs. There are a few more questions that he releases every time through his reports, which I've put in into the online quiz. So please make sure you do that. Other than that, this should not surprise you. It is possible, although not very likely, but it is possible that you can get a full theory section C question with no numbers at all or hardly any numbers. So you could have a question, an entire 20-mark question, or 15 out of the 20 marks could be for theory, for discussing, maybe analyzing certain techniques, advantages, disadvantages, or could be pure knowledge with a little bit of application to the scenario also. So you should be ready. As we know, 60% of this exam is going to be theory, so you need to be confident in the theoretical aspects to be able to pass this exam successfully. Okay, please keep all of these in mind. There are a few things, a few more technical things that he's spoken about, which I'll quickly go through. He says students are often getting confused in, he's specifically talking about the September 2017 exam, which is the previous sitting. So he says a few common mistakes that students were making, which you should rectify for future sittings is when doing the lease versus buy decision, please do not use the cost of capital as the discount rate. Please make sure you use the cost of debt as the discount rate, and please make sure it is net of tax also. So the cost of debt net of tax should be the discount rate. When doing capital rationing, please make sure that you consider inflows and outflows, initial investment, all outflows associated with the project. So consider all the cash flows. Do not ignore any cash flows. Make sure that the timing on the cash flow is accurate. So if he says the tax is paid in arrears, please make sure you put it starting from year 2 onwards. So with a 1-year delay. Please make sure if he says 30%, it is 30% the tax rate, but sometimes what he does is he does change it to maybe 27%, 33%, just to see if you're reading the question or not. So please watch out for these things. He says students are still not able to clearly grasp the difference between the ex dividend share price and the cumulative cum dividend share price. So ex dividend, as we have discussed, is the share price after dividends have already been paid. So please differentiate between these two. Earnings per share, when you use it for calculating normal earnings per share or earnings per share to multiply with the PE ratio, please make sure that the earnings you take is after interest, tax, and even after paying preference dividends. So these are earnings attributable only to equity shareholders, not preference shareholders. So please deduct any preference dividends, and the net figure is the earnings that you should be using for earnings per share. Okay, with forex, foreign exchange hedging, please make sure that if you're trying to hedge a receipt, you select the right side rate. Remember, you get two rates, the left side and the right side. Please make sure you use the right side rate for receipts, left side rate for hedging payments. When doing a money market hedge, if you're doing a 6-month hedge, please make sure you take the interest rate only for 6 months. Not because interest rates generally quoted in the exam are for the entire year. Please time apportion them. So 6 months means take half the rate. He also says things like gap exposure, which is there in the notes. Please make sure you read through all of this. What is gap exposure, positive gap, negative gap? This is in relation to risk management itself. So please make sure you go through all of these. And these are generally going to be, risk management is going to be MCQs, but please make sure you're comfortable with all of these topics. Yeah, all the best. From Sarah, Rohit, Preeti and me, we wish you good luck for the exam. Thank you.